How we doing? My guest today is Yusno Yunos. Yusno is the CEO and founder of Evenesis, which is a complete cloud-based end-to-end event management system that integrates planners, participants, and suppliers. So in this conversation, we cover the event space, where it is now, but also where it might be heading after the past few wild years, and how the metaverse may impact future events. So this conversation was all very new to me, so a lot of learning, but extremely enjoyable. So please enjoy my conversation with Yusno Yunos. And an interesting place to start, I think, is the story behind Evenesis. So could you explain how the problems encountered in your wedding ceremony, and just to be clear, it's not marital problems, but could you explain how that was the genesis for Evenesis?
Sure, Kalani. So I think it was back in the days, I think it was in 2007, where we first planning to get married, my wife and I. So we had a lot of challenges. I think all of you who are going to get married would soon know that, in terms of arranging your invitations, finding place to get married, and all of the other interesting stuff. Yeah. So all of that were done manually without an event planner or wedding planner. So as a technical person, I saw this problem and I thought, hey, we could actually find a solution or provide a solution using web technology. So we developed a simple web application to help manage wedding RSVPs. So that was the beginning of the I would say the MVP, the minimum viable product of Evenesis.
And was that your first taste with entrepreneurship? What had you done prior to that in your life?
Yes, that was my actually first taste of entrepreneurship. So I was working with a utility company before. That was my first job. And then I moved on to another consulting firm. And yeah, during that time, we were actually trying to get married and we were building that solution. And I think 2-3 years down the road, we decided to actually leave the company and start this thing full time.
Yeah. And yeah, so when you first started, what did the events industry look like then? So what did it look and feel like? And then, how has the business evolved? But what was it like at the start?
I would say when we first started, we were only looking at weddings and other customer or clients B2C events. So I would say the situation was really lively in terms of, I mean, you would have a lot of events week in, week out. But the challenges that we had at that point in time was we had a very good solution. On a free model, we were getting a lot of signups, but we were not able to convert them to a paid subscribers. So people were basically, they were excited about the solution when they were being given for free. But once we started to get them to upgrade and pay, I think in weddings, you had a lot of other priorities. Technology would be, I would say, the last thing in your mind. So you would go back to your manual way of doing things, or even on Excel file, those kind of things. So that's where we started to look into the bigger portion or the bigger side of events, where a lot of B2B events are happening. And we started to pivot into the business events, or some would call it the MICE industry: meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions. So that's a story from weddings to MICE.
Yeah, and just to further add on that, would you be able, just for viewers who are new to Evenesis, could you explain the business as it is today and what it offers?
So Evenesis is an event technology company. So we are very passionate technology guys in the events or business events industry. So we currently have a platform, a solution that covers the entire range of pre, during, and post-event processes. So what it entails is it covers everything from your registration, email marketing, database management, event mobile app, through on-site registration, engagement, live Q&A, polling, post-events analytics, and reports as well.
Yeah, and I think maybe a common example, it's not super related, but everyone knows how well Zoom fared during COVID. But for you guys as well, how did COVID impact your business, given you're so online? But what was that whole scenario for you like from start, middle to end?
I think we were as impacted as everyone else at the very beginning. So yeah, we were looking at a very good year before COVID. think we were scaling 2-3 times year-on-year basis. But then when COVID hit, I think a lot, I would say 100% of the events that we are having in our platform are either cancelled or postponed, because majority of them are basically physical face-to-face events. Yeah. So the first few months were really tough in a sense that how do we recover, because majority of our technology solutions are geared for physical events. And then of course the demand was to definitely go online, virtual. So this is where I think we use up the first 2-3 months to develop our own virtual product. So that actually helped to for us to recover during COVID in 2020. And then we did quite well in 2021 with the product, and then went to hybrid as well. And it is actually very, very good that we are now having a complete solution covering both sides of events, virtual, physical, and hybrid as well.
Yeah. So with everything going forward, starting to open up, how do you view growth going forward? Is it predominantly back to physical events being the main driver, or is there a shift? How do you say it? Yeah.
That's a good and interesting question, because what we are seeing this year is actually a decline of virtual events. Yeah. So I think this is very much due to the reopening of borders and the reopening of the events industry itself. I think the pent-up demand of doing events physically has caused a lot of organizers to just shift to simply all 100% face-to-face and physical events this year. But that, to me, does not mean virtual or online events will just go away. I think in the next few years, we will be seeing a lot more of these hybrid events coming up. I think we are seeing it already this year. And this is simply due to the fact that event organizers are now able to cater bigger and wider audience. Yeah, so we are looking at not just the engagement that you can have on the ground for physical events, but also for those who can't really make it because they had to travel, they do not want to spend so much time on the plane, right? So this allows them to consume contents rather than actually attending the event. So moving forward, I believe the trend, the future trend will definitely be hybrid events.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I'm the best example. I live in the most isolated city.
Exactly.
And then for running your business, did you have any takeaways from COVID, whether it's management styles or having a greater runway and safety net in your business? Or yeah, what did you take away and learn from that?
Yeah, I think we learned definitely a lot. The one good thing that we are very thankful is the ability to have reserves in terms of cash flows. Those are the things that we need to have, especially when you do not have any businesses in the first few months. So the fact that we have always looked at profitability first, as opposed to just gaining traction, getting investment. So we are more like the camel rather than the unicorn side of things. So I think those are the things that has been proven really useful during COVID times. And I think even now, during the endemic and post-pandemic, we are looking at investors getting savvier and looking at companies that they can invest where they have good runways, the ability to manage cash flows really well. So this is something that we have learned really well during the pandemic.
Yeah, awesome. And one bit that piqued my interest when researching Evenesis, so the company's carried out a rebranding exercise twice. So you've changed your visual identity, image, and brand promise. How did you come to that decision both times, especially after the first one? What did you change the second time around?
Okay, the first time was when we were really, really new. So we were sort of like techies, right? Trying to get into the events industry, and we don't really know the how. So we had to engage a branding consultant to really help us, to position us so that we are the subject matter expert. We know what we do and fit them to whatever the events industry needs. So we've been basically seen as this hip kind of cool techies trying to get into this event industry. So that works for the first 5-6 years. when you were really a startup trying to get into the industries. But as you mature, I think the second round, when we had that rebranding exercise, it is more to trying to make them understand that technologies are everywhere. You see, so I mean, we have a lot of competitors, but how are we different and unique than the others? So our promise, our brand promise is right now, after the second rebranding exercise, is to make sure our clients get better event experiences. So it's all about how technology can give our clients a much engagement, better experiences, personalization. So this is what we are trying to do with our team. It's not just giving them a platform without services. So software as a service, yes, it's a platform, but our team will come in to ensure the event will be managed and organized successfully with our technology.
Yeah, and you made a good point there about how you've gone from a startup to a now mature business. As you've matured, what problems have changed? Like maybe earlier on it was cash flow, whereas now it might be something else. Like how have problems changed as you've grown and matured?
I think we really had to change teams because as you grow and look at the different way of scaling your company, the team or the people that you have with you is either they understand where you're trying to go, they believe in your vision and mission. So we also had to recruit few more senior team members who understand how to basically scale the company, especially entering or expanding into a new market. So yeah, I think that the initial team was very, very good when we were at a startup phase. But when we had to go into expansion, trying out new markets in Singapore, Indonesia, Hong Kong. So this is where we started having these challenges of recruiting right talents, recruiting the right senior talents within the team. So this is something that we learn trial and error along the way.
Yeah, and if we go back to the start of Evenesis, is there any stories you remember of that time about some of the hard moments of life, early life in the company, like, and how you overcome them, like whether it's proof of concept or raising capital? Yeah, what are some of the early problems you look back on and have stories about?
Yeah, I think it's all about raising capital at the very beginning because you have fantastic ideas. You want to do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, how do you do that with limited resources, right? So there's so much thing you can do with getting right people, but these people need to be paid as well. Technologies, you need hardwares, you need a lot of licenses. So how do we get to that? I think I would say the first 2 years were really, really challenging. We got we got a government grant at the very beginning, a very minimal amount, but it is good enough for us to get our software to the first version. All right. So that helped us to have at least 3 part-time staff, part-time developers, not even a full-time. But the problem arose when we completed the product, the funding ended, and we do not have any clients yet. So at the end of the day, business is about having customers, right? Because you need customers to pay you and your team salary. So this is the moment where we started to realize, remember earlier I mentioned about pivoting, because we had a really good solution. It's just that we cannot turn it into sort of like clients, right? We cannot get clients from our free solution. So this is where we had to change a lot of things, our business models, fine-tuning the solution, and now chase a lot of bigger sort of like events and clients who are able to pay. So those are the shifting moments at the very beginning. And yeah, I think that teaches a lot about the agility of the team, the company, the ability to shift quickly once you realize that your current business model is not working.
Yeah, and an interesting point. I just want to know for myself, curiously, being in the event space, how did you find your customers early on? Like, where did you go to find them? How did you pitch them? Yeah, just walk me through that.
Wow, that's interesting, because what we did very, very early on, because we had limited resources, so we had to do really guerrilla marketing, you see. So all of us, 2 or 3 of us, we just basically knock on all the doors. We basically, those days in Malaysia, especially with the government agencies, with the ministries, you still have to write letters, you see. I mean, so we do two things. So we wrote a lot of letters, official letters, and we scan them, send them via email, fax them. So those are those days. I think out of 100 letters, emails we send, we get 1 or 2 replies. But I think those are the things that we had to really hustle about, and it did get us our first client via that method, and that basically started. It kickstart our progress to getting better clients based on that mode. Another thing that we also did was we collaborated with a lot of bigger technology vendors. So this includes partnership with Microsoft and IBM. So we were among the few early startups who went on their cloud. So in Malaysia, if you're the earliest ones to get on these programs, normally they will bring you around, you see. So this is where we were helped by giants, right, to basically access the market. So basically, if people or the GLCs or the MNCs heard that we are being backed by Microsoft or IBM, it is much easier for them to accept in terms of the solution itself. Yeah, so those are the early things that we did in terms of how do we market ourselves. And over the years, things have changed definitely. Now, I would say we did whatever that we did 10 years ago, maybe still about 20 to 30%, but the majority of the work right now is purely digital marketing. So we've moved on to fine-tuning our SEO, doing a lot of Google ads. Yeah. So those are basically driving a lot of leads to our businesses nowadays.
Yeah. I love that first story. For a tech company, just write letters. So good. And is there anything you know now that you wish you knew when starting Evenesis? Like, what advice would you give yourself if you were starting over again?
Wow, I would say I wish I knew that the events industry are tech averse when I first started, so that I would maybe do something different or maybe focus. I mean, I know it is big, you see, in terms of the size, they do a lot of things, but I did not know it is so hard to move things, especially when you have a lot of these giants, the old timers who are so used to doing things that they were not willing to change. So it's really hard to break that down. So it took us a lot of years and time to do education, you see. So this is sometimes if you are not willing to go all out, along the way you'll just break down and basically say, I'm not going to do that anymore. But I think we prevailed, and that's interesting because now we can see the shift, digitalization. COVID has expedited a lot of things as well. Yep.
Yeah. And you could apply this to either your company specifically or the events industry in general. But what do you think is most misunderstood? What do you think is most misunderstood there?
I think it's all about understanding the benefits of the technology itself, the cost benefit analysis. A lot of organizers who are running shows on their own, they looked at profitability. So technology is just another component that will reduce that numbers, you see. So you're adding more things. And plus, when you are in a market where the cost of labor is cheap, yeah, especially in Southeast Asia, so the investment on technology might not give them the right return, you see. They might just say, I would have spent this and get more people who can do more things rather than deploying technology. So it is more about paradigm shift, trying to understand with technology they can do more, so they can earn more rather than reducing whatever that they are making right now. So yeah, I think that the next generation, the generation that we are in now, is basically we understood that.
Yeah, and for Evenesis' growth going forward, it's around the topic of acquisitions. So could you walk me through the decision to acquire Texty in order to expand Evenesis? Like, what was that process like? And yeah.
Right, I think that is our first acquisition this year. So actually, we met the founder, I think the second quarter of the year. So the initial discussion was to collaborate. I mean, I've always been a believer of collaboration, even among competitors. So we saw synergy between the two companies, even though some of the things that we do are quite similar. but our markets are different, you see. So Taxi at that point in time has been around for almost 3 years, and they have been serving very specific towards the trade shows market. So this is a big B2B market that we've been, not to say ignoring for the past couple of years, because our focus has always been on seminars, conferences, but not trade shows specifically. So when we saw the opportunity to grab a bigger market share in trade shows, and this is one of the good guys that we believe can expand our market, we decided to come together and see whether this approach can allow us to gain greater market share in Asia Pacific, because they are already in Thailand, they're already in the Philippines. So it makes more sense for us to come together and grow in a faster way. So that's basically the reason why we decided to come together, merge, acquire, and they have great talents. So we have good talents now in our company.
Yeah. Any thoughts on doing further acquisitions? Like, what do you feel about that?
That could be. I mean, I'm always open to first collaboration. And if that collaboration means acquisition, then it's a definite yes. It's all about understanding the synergy between the two parties or three parties, or how many parties that we're going to bring in. And it has to align with our vision and mission as well. So we do not want to get just talent, but then again, they don't believe in what we do. So even though we are a tech company, we believe in ensuring our tech provides sustainable events as well. So this is something that we want to be in the future.
Yeah. And one topic I want to talk about is the metaverse. Super hot topic. So there's plenty of strong opinions on both sides, but how do you and Evenesis view it?
I mean, I'm a believer of that, definitely. As a tech, I'm passionate in tech. I think this is not something new. I think all of us know that virtual reality has been around for quite some time. So it's just a evolution of that. We are not there yet, but it has been hyped a lot recently, especially when Facebook changed the name to Meta. Everyone is trying to do something in Metaverse. So what I would say on this matter is that the awareness needs to be there. We need to really understand what it can do, how it can benefit, especially in my industry, in the events industry. It's not a one-off thing. So we've seen a lot of failures during COVID, especially when you are doing online virtual events, because it lacks engagement. It's a one-off, because everything that is one-off will not give you the right returns, you see. You spend a lot to build, but it's only for that one-time event or maybe an annual event. In any metaverse or a virtual reality sort of like world, the digital world that you are creating, you need a lot of engagement. You need people to really transact. You need people to be educated. A lot of gamification factors in there. So it will take time for events to understand how they can really put these elements into either their own metaverse or utilizing an existing metaverse that are already in place. So it could also be something that you do within Roblox or within Decentraland or within Sandbox, right? So you don't really have to create your own new metaverse. So this is something that we've been educating, you see. So this is the part that we've always been doing whenever there is a new hype or a new technology that is coming in the industry, because all of the organizers will ask you, what's the new thing? I heard about Metaverse. Can I do Metaverse for my events? I'm not the one who would always say, yes, you should. Yeah, you should. You need to spend this. It's more about why. What's the purpose of your event? Is meeting the objectives and filling that with the right technology so that you get the best experiences. So it's not always about what's the latest and what's the best technology that is out there. So yeah, Metaverse is something that's going to be there. Our new generation, my kids, our kids, they are basically very aware. They've been playing Roblox. So they know what it is. So for the events industry to understand that, it's about catering to this new generation. In 5-10 years' time, this will be the generation that will just go and step into Metaverse. So if you're not ready now, you'll be basically a dinosaur later on.
Yeah, and it's obviously early days, so it's hard to say anything with concrete confidence. But
Yes.
how do you see early use cases for the event space? So obviously, maybe trade shows might be harder than normal events, or even like fan-based meetups might be better for the metaverse and events. But how do you view early use cases for what you guys do and the metaverse?
I still believe it has to be complementing technology rather than, again, as I mentioned earlier, when you're moving to hybrid. So this is a part where you can actually allow people who are not able to attend the event physically to join in virtually, but in either a digital twin, so mimicking whatever that the physical events are happening. So you could have a very well designed venue space. So venue could actually use Metaverse as their digital twin space. So they could make revenue as well from having a very specific replica of whatever that they have on the Metaverse. So this could be something that I think right now some venues are already exploring this. In fact, I would say last year we had a client who was doing this conference, outdoor exhibition, those kind of things in a virtual reality world. So we created a game where they could just choose their avatar, those kind of things, go in, interact, network. But it's a good first try, I would say. Again, the fallback from that particular event was mainly due to the audience. So if you are getting 40 years and above kind of audience, for them to use this WASD keys, right, is not that easy. It will take time for them to move front, left, right, those kind of things. So once they are not used to that on the first day of the event, they'll just get basically, I'm done. I'm not going to basically do this. So a lot of awareness, a lot of understanding about the demographics of your attendees as well. So yeah, I think it's really at the early days, but it has huge potential.
Yeah, so you discussed some of the opportunities there and also touched on one challenge, but is there any other challenges do you see with the metaverse and plans to overcome it, whether it's just younger generations coming through and age, like you mentioned, or is it access to tech? Yeah, what are some of the challenges do you think maybe?
Right now, if we are looking at the cost, yeah, that could be another big factor as well. A lot of metaverse development right now, I think, is being undertaken by agencies because they have a lot of brand activation. And as you know, their clients are basically those who can really afford 3D development because these are not yet cheap and mass. So you need to pump in quite a lot of money. So if you are doing something for events on a smaller scale, it might not be realistic enough for you to create something new. So it might make more sense for you to utilize an existing space. Could be a VR chat, or it could be, as I mentioned earlier, either you jump into the Decentraland wagon or Sandbox wagon. So yeah, I think cost would be something that could be a factor right now. Once it matures, and also the cost of the hardwares as well. So besides having it on desktop, mobile, you're seeing a lot of things are happening on VR headsets as well. So once we are able to get those things down in terms of price, which I don't think it is not that affordable at the moment, it's just a matter of making people more aware and willingness to try this technology.
Yeah, and we'll finish with a couple general questions about Evenesis. So in the spirit of Charlie Munger's quote, "Tell me where I die, so I'll never go there." What do you think are the biggest existential risks or challenges that you face in the future? So, yeah, what are the problems you may face, do you think, going forward?
Well, moving forward, I would definitely see challenges in terms of having events that are really, really engaging and different. I mean, all events right now are trying to be different, trying to be unique, and how technology can play a role, and definitely incorporating the elements of sustainability. So this is something that is going to be really, really important because I know in certain parts of the world, they're taking this seriously. But I think the awareness is still lacking in this. I mean, in our country, in this part of the world where we talk a lot, but we are not implementing or taking any action yet. So we have a lot of corporate guys with ESGs, right? We're talking about sustainability, but how can events achieve that net zero carbon events by 2050? So a lot of things need to be done along the way. So we have started doing things in terms of making people aware via technology. So one of the things that we did this year is to do a simple carbon calculator. It is exactly like any other calculators that you can use on the web, but how are we different is that once you register for an event on our platform, once we know where you are going to be traveling from, we'll be able to project your carbon emissions. So if you're saying you're coming from Perth on an airline, on an economy class, right? So the distance we know, so we'll basically tell you that you'll be burning this much carbon, right? So by showing the numbers to you and aggregating the total of that emission and providing that dashboard to the organizers is a different thing. So now the organizers will have a better awareness. Oh my God, is this what we're gonna basically emit, right? If everyone is traveling, so how can we reduce that? Can we do a hybrid version of it? Yeah, can we reduce some sort of things in this event? So first step is all about awareness, showing them data that will make them act. Yeah. So this is something interesting, something that we're gonna really push more next year in terms of how we're gonna get them to really implement some of these changes to ensure we are able to achieve this sustainability in events.
Yeah, that's a great point. Something I never really thought of. At the start there, you did mention one challenge can be engaging events. So just curious for you, what makes an engaging event? Like, yeah, what do you think makes a good event?
I always put myself from the attendee point of view. So when I'm choosing an event to attend, I would want to first understand what's in it for me. So if I'm looking at the event, I look at the content, I like that topic, I like that speaker, but I'm at the place where I don't think I can engage. I just want to consume content, right? So to me, I would rather be attending it virtually because I just want to listen, so consume. I was just want to take notes, those kind of things, and then I can do my other things. One. Number two, if I'm actually want to be engaged, I want to be part of the event. So this is where I looked at the speakers, I looked at how I can ask questions, how I can basically approach the speakers, how I can network with the other attendees, what are the exhibitors that are available, what are the things I can get from these exhibitors. So it has to match my expectation. And not just engagement, but I also mentioned about personalization. And this is something that is not easy to do, but this is something that we have been cracking our head and trying our best to ensure that if I'm able to know you and differentiate you from everyone else in the event and give you the right experience that tailor to you, I think that is engagement, you see. So I already know your dietary preferences and the history is being tapped. As you walk to the counter, there is someone or a robot, whoever it is, or a kiosk that can basically greet you. Hey, Kalani, yeah, how are you doing today, right? This is your ticket, right? Go ahead. So all of the experiences are smooth. You feel that you've been taken care of. And of course, all of this can be made viable via technology. So engagement, personalization, this is something that we strive for any events.
Awesome. I appreciate that answer. That was, yeah, very in-depth. And generally, before I get into my closing round of questions, is there anything we haven't talked about today that's consequential about the future of Evenesis?
I think we've covered a lot, Kalani. I think a lot of questions that you asked were really, really relevant. I think we are at a phase where we believe events are changing. Events are right now looking at, we are actually in the hospitality segment, you see. So events, tourism, it's all about people. So whenever we are in the people business, a lot of the people in the industry saying that we are in the people business. So we bring in tech. Yeah, it's not about replacing people. So we have to be really aware about that. So tech is not to replace people. We will always be in the business of people. Tech is an enabler. Tech will just be something that will elevate whatever that you do to a different level. Yeah. So that's what we're striving for and trying to do here.
Perfect. Love that answer. All right. So closing round of questions. Favorite Michael Crichton book and why?
Good one. I like Prey. I'm not sure whether you've heard of that
I
because
haven't read that yet, no.
yeah, because it was done in 2002 and it talks about nanotechnology. And there's another one called Timeline, of course, about time machine, but it was done in 1998 or 1999, but it talks about quantum technology. So way back, we already talked about that in the book. Yep.
I love it. I've read a few, obviously the Jurassic Parks and Andromeda Strain. Was it Sphere as well?
Yep.
Is that by him? So
Yes, you're right.
I've got a few more to go. It's good. He's got such a big backlog. Airframe too, I've read. I love it.
Awesome.
So most undervalued life experience that university age students don't give weight to. So like, what do you think is an underrated skill or an experience that you think young people should have, or even something you wish you had earlier on?
I think we should be given more opportunity to fail rather than to succeed. Because once you are in the entrepreneurship, then you start to realize that you will not always get things, or that there's no one right way to do things. And there are many ways to fail as well. So if you are given the opportunity, or you are being given the chance to fail, and you basically appreciate the failure so that they can learn from that, I think that would make them a better person once they graduated from college.
Yeah, totally agree with that one. And is there any books or even people that have been influential in shaping your worldview?
I think when I first decided to step into entrepreneurship, I read this Robert Kiyosaki book. I think you know that.
Yeah.
Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
right? So the quadrant, those kind of things, and that basically told me that, okay, this is an interesting way. Yep, I think that was quite influential at that point in time.
Awesome. Love that answer. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. Lastly, anything else you'd like to plug or add? Where can people find you? Yeah, any parting thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I'm Yusno, so my name is a bit unique. So you can simply search me on LinkedIn. You can find Yusno Yunos there. And if you want to know more about the company, you can just go to evenesis.com. It's spelled Evenesis, and it is pronounced as Evenesis. It's actually a combination of events and Genesis.
Perfect. I'll include links to all the show notes. So Yusno, thank you so much for coming on today. I had a blast.
Thanks, Kalani, for having me today.